Hi, I want to talk about this real-time data analysis exercise as an example for future similar questions. Almost for every homework, you will have real-time data analysis questions. So this question is supposed to be an example that you may refer to for future assignments. So this is question number 7 of homework 1. Let me briefly read the setup. Go to the St. Louis Federal Reserve FRED database and find data on the M1 money supply. Note here it has a symbol M1SL. So this is actually a very important information because later on, as I will show you, you can directly put this symbol without any confusing and get the data. And the 10-year Treasury bond rate, and this is also has a symbol here. Click the following link to view the M1 money supply data from FRED. So let me click on this. And you can see the data here is going from 1959 to 2017 December. That's the last date the data is available. And this is the M1 money stock. Now let's go back to the setup. In general, how did the growth rate of the M1 money supply behave during recessions and expansionary periods since the year 2000? So since the question mentions that it's 2000, so why don't we restrict the year and month to be after 2000? So let me just input this year to start from 2000. January to 2000. Now you can see the graph only shows the portion of the data which is after January 2000. And if you read this carefully, you can see that the question asks us, how did the growth rate? So, but the data here directly gives us the M1 money supply. So that means the data directly given is the level, but the question asked is the growth rate. So that's where we need to be very super careful. And that means we need to convert the numbers in level into percentage change. And the FRED, the St. Louis Federal Reserve website, actually has very convenient tools that you can directly use for the conversion. So if you just click on Edit Graph, so you see here it gives you the units. Now since the data is in levels, so the units is in billions of dollars. But as we said, the question is asking us for the growth rate. So we need to change this to be percentage change. So here it has a percentage change and percentage change from a year ago. So by default, we want to work with the percentage change from a year ago. So then I use that. And let me just use that information. So you can see that just right after I click the change, change to a different units, the graph also changes. So if I close this menu here, so now the graph shows the growth of the money supply for each month over a year ago. Since we said the data is now percentage change over the year. So and so that's basically we have changed the data according to the requirement of the question. So now let's read the question. The money growth rate A increased during recessional periods. However, during the expansional periods, there was less of a pattern. So let's continue read the four choices and then we can say what's the pattern of the choices. B increased during expansionary periods. However, during the recessional periods, there was less of a pattern. C fell during recessional periods and increased during expansionary periods. D fell during recessional periods. However, during expansionary periods, there was less of a pattern. So basically, we need to, based on these four choices, we need to analyze what's the pattern of the growth rate of money during the expansionary periods, and what's the pattern of the growth rate of money during the recessional periods. So when was the recessional periods on this graph? So if you read this at the bottom of this graph, it says shaded areas indicate US recessions. So that gives a very obvious way to check what's the pattern of the data when during the recessional periods. So you can see very clearly that during these gray areas, which is the recessional periods, money supply, the growth rate of money supply actually increased, right? For both of these two recessions after 2000. So that means increased during recessional periods. The first part of the A is correct, and the first part of B increased during the expansionary periods. Is that the case? Let's check. So the white areas basically mean the expansionary periods. So you can see that the growth rate simply bumps up and down without a clear pattern. So the first part of B is not correct. And C, fell during recessional periods, that's incorrect. D, fell during recessional periods. So actually, only based on the first part of the four choices, we can see only A is correct. So what about the second part? However, during the expansionary periods, there was less of a pattern. That's actually what we just found out. So A is correct. We can check our answer. So now let's continue. In general, so the second part of this question is asking about, in general, how did the 10-year Treasury bond rate behave during the recessions and expansionary periods since the year 2000? So as I said, an important symbol we need to take note is this 10-year Treasury bond rate, which is GS10. So now let's go back to the chart, and I want to use the edit graph function again. But now I want to add a line because so far it's just one data, but now I want to add a second data, which is the 10-year Treasury bond rate. So I click on add line and type. You can see that the keywords here is type keywords to search for data. So let's just put this GS10. So I just copied that. So I paste that here, GS10. So you can see that directly it pumps up two series. One is the 10-year Treasury constant maturity rate. The second one is the 5-year. So obviously, only the first one is relevant here. So then I click on Add Data Series. So now we need to be super careful because when we dealt with the first data series, M1 money supply, remember we did the change because the direct data is in levels, but the question is asking about the growth rate. So we changed the level to the percentage change over the year. But if you read for the second line refers to the 10-year Treasury bond rate. So that's directly the interest rate. We don't have to do the percentage change anymore. But by default, you can see the units here is still percent change from a year ago. So we need to change that back to percent, which is basically in this case is the level, because directly the interest rate is the level is the percentage. So that's all we need to know. That's all we need to do here, and then we close this functions here, and now let's go to the setup again. In general, how did the 10-year Treasury bond rate behave during the recessions and expansionary periods since the year 2000? So we can directly observe now the red curve refers to the 10-year Treasury bonds, the interest rate. So you can see that after 2000, during the two recessional periods, the interest rate generally went down, right? It's directly went down. So we can see that pattern here. So now let's match what we observed with the choices here. A, increased during the recessional period. As we said, that's incorrect. B, fell during the recessional periods. And C, fell during the recessional periods. D, increased during the expansionary periods. However, during the recessional periods, there was less of a pattern. So based on our observation for the recessional periods, seems that only B or C are correct. So now let's go to the second part of these two choices. B is increased during the expansionary periods. So the white areas refer to the expansionary periods. So do we have an increase? I guess not, right? So here, actually, we don't have a clear pattern for the interest rate during the expansionary period. It went up and down depending on the time periods. So B is incorrect. What about C? However, during the expansionary periods, there was less of a pattern. So C, in this case, is correct. Let's check answer. We're done. Now let's continue. In general, is there an obvious, stable relationship between money growth and the 10-year interest rate since the year 2000? So based on our observations so far, we can see that during the recessionary periods, when the money growth increased, interest rate tend to be falling. Right, so because one is increasing, the other one is going down, so we can see that they have an opposite pattern to each other, opposite relationship to each other. Now let's keep that in mind and answer this question here. A, yes, when money growth rises, the 10-year Treasury rate appears to fall. So is that the case? Money growth rises. So we can see that pattern existed during the recessional periods, but what about expansionary periods? So you can see that when the growth rate goes up, does the interest rate goes down? Yes, seems to be from December 2000 to March 2001. That seems to be the case. What about other periods? So then we have a bottom here, which is September 2000, and then going up to August 2003. Then the money growth rate also experienced a expansionary period. So what about the interest rate? Interest rate during that period started from 3.87, and then went up to 4.45. And let's continue because the pattern may not hold for all the time periods, but as long as it holds for most of the time periods, we can see it's a pattern. So what about, let's say this period it holds? What about this period from July 2010 and then to August 2011? So what about the interest rate? Interest rate went from 3.01 to 2.30. So yes, during that time period, interest rate went down when the growth rate of money went up. What about other time periods when we have a clear pattern here? So then we have from February 2016, the money growth went up, and then until May 2016. So what about the interest rate? February 2016, and that's 1.78, and then until May, and that's 1.81. So the pattern here may not be so obvious as we saw during the recessionary periods. But let's see whether, let's hold this for a while. Let's read the other choices. B, no, there is no obvious relationship between money growth and the 10-year interest rate since the year 2000. I tend to choose this one, even though my econ lab may mark the answer otherwise, but now let me use this one. And because I know that my econ lab probably choose A. And C, yes, when money growth rises, the 10-year treasury rate also appears to rise. That obviously is wrong because during the recessionary periods, as we just saw, that's just the opposite. D, no, from 2001 to 2003, when money growth was rising, the 10-year treasury rate was falling. But during the 2007 to 2009 period, when money growth was rising, the 10-year treasury rate was also rising. So let's see whether this is correct. From 2001 to January 2001 to 2003. So 2003. Yes, money supply, the growth rate of money supply is increasing. What about the 10-year treasury rate? You can see that from January, the 10-year treasury rate is 5.16, and until the end of December 2003, that's 4.24. So we started from again, what's the 5.16 and 4.24. So it went down. The 10-year treasury rate was falling, so that's correct. Actually, this first part is correct. But during the 2007 to 2009 period, when money growth was rising, 2007 to, so that's during the, we can see that basically during the most recent financial crisis, when money growth was rising, the 10-year treasury rate was also rising. That I believe is incorrect, as we just saw. So this part is D is incorrect. So now our choice is basically A or B. I tend to choose B, but I think my econ lab may ask me to choose A. So let me try A. But you can also say A might be correct because as we just, I think we compared basically five periods, and 3 of the periods we have a negative relationship between these two. Only during the other two, there was not a pattern, so we can see A could also be correct. So both A or B can be correct in this case. So if you choose either of them, I will add back your points. I will count your points for that part of the question. So then let's continue. Compare the money growth rate and the 10-year interest rate for December 2017 to January 2000. Enter your responses exactly as they appear on Fred. So December, M1 money growth, December 2017. So let's go to December. So why don't we move this a little bit? So you can see that the time here is December 2017. Then the first number, that's basically refers to the growth rate of money, and that's 7.74. So I guess you can input more numbers if you want, because the question basically says exactly, input the number exactly as it appears on the Fred website. So 7.73512. 7.73512. And during the January, why don't we finish December 1st? 10-year treasury rate. You can see that basically is the second number here. That's a red number, which is 2.40. So that's 2.40. And now let's go to the January 2000. And basically that's where the graph started. So you can see the first number now changes to 1.08507. So 1.08507. So that's the money growth rate on January 2000. And what about oh, that's a bit weird. Okay, so let me change back this to be 2000, starting from 2000. Yeah, now it's January 2000. Oh, I have this. Oh, the number there may not be the last number, so now I have to double check whether I got. Oh, why do I? Sometimes it doesn't give me the number which I need. But I think we got that number right. So now let's go to this January 2000. The first number is 2.19470. So so I need to change this to be 2.19470. 19. And then the second number, the 10-year treasury rate is 6.66. 6.66. So now let's check my answer. Nice work. Now the last part, how do they compare? The money growth rate was in December 2017, then it was in January 2000. So basically this question is asking you which number is higher. So that's very simple. So the number in December 2017 for the money growth was higher. And for the 10-year treasury rate, the number is lower in December. So now let's check our answer. So great. So we have finished this question. Again, the only probably a little bit controversial part of this question is the third multiple choice question, which asks you about the pattern for the relationship between money growth rate and the 10-year treasury rate since the year 2000. You can either choose A or B here, which I will add back your points. If you choose B, but my econ lab deduct your points, but the other part should my econ lab should give you the correct answers. Again, the purpose of this video is to help you better understand how to answer the real-time data analysis questions, how to use the Fred website, how to add a line, and how to change the units. I hope it's helpful.